section a little bit different here, known as Afro in the Know. And today I have a special guest here, all the way, all the way, all the way from another side of the U.S. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna tell you what it is though. I'm just gonna let you guys know, all the way from different side of the U.S. is Critical Film, and I, dude, I'm actually really excited that you're here. I
I'm
really,
I'm I'm excited. This is awesome. We've been talking for a while on TikTok, and I'm extremely happy that you asked me to come onto your podcast because I'm a film guy. At least I like to think I'm a film guy. But yes, my name is Critical Film. Actually, that's not really my real name. My real name is Carlo Barbieri, but I go through Critical Film, and I am from the East Coast, and I am from Massachusetts. I'm not from Boston. There is other places in Mass that do exist. I live in the central part of Massachusetts, so I live in Central Mass, which is the Worcester County area. Never call it Worcester; will come after you, but
Worcester.
Worcester.
No,
Uh,
Worcester.
but Worcester County area, that's Central Mass, and then you have the Berkshires on the later part of Massachusetts where that really doesn't exist. Actually, anybody that actually lives on the 495 area belt here on for the highway don't even doesn't even know that the rest of Massachusetts exists at all. Like you ask anybody, you're like, hey, do you know where like Gardner, Ashburnham, Fitchburg, Leominster, all these other towns and small little cities are? They're like, no, no, I don't know. I'm like, you've been a resident here your entire life. You've never come out this way. No.
I've been
Yeah.
wanting to check out. Actually, at one point, I was going to check out like the Boston, Massachusetts, and all that. I want to see the East Coast, right? I want to see the eastern side. I've already checked out a few states on the western side, like Colorado. I've been to California, and I've been to like places like Florida and Texas. But I
Yep.
want to check out the eastern side because I feel like it's got a whole different vibe to it that's so different from well, Texas. So
It it does. It does. I mean, I love New York. I will always be a New York fan. I get to live. I Most people would be like, "Come on, man." I get to live in New York for about a year. And even though a year is not even saying that you lived in New York at all, I I love New York. I do. I love the city. I love the history. I love just everything about it. And I know a lot of people want to leave New York because, of course, it's extremely expensive to live there.
I've
Right.
I have heard.
Yeah, it's very expensive to live there. But for the most part, if you're a city dweller and you have everything at your fingertips, pretty much, that is the place to be. Really, you can get almost anything you really want. I mean, you still gotta walk around and take the sub and go travel. I mean, but for the most part, you can walk almost anywhere. Really, right? You don't really need a car in New York. Here in Boston, you need a car to go everywhere because it's not designed as a regular city. I mean, it's one of the older cities I mean, in the United States, and so the way that it was developed was cobblestones and horse and buggy, right?
Right.
And over years they tried to redesign and refix Massachusetts. They tried to do the Big Dig, and we're still suffering from that.
What was the big dig?
The Big Dig was to um, have everything go underground, so all the cars and vehicles go underground,
Okay.
so that they could, of course, kill the traffic at the time when they were trying to do stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
and the thing was is that the Big Dig was ultimately one of the biggest engineering, um, you know, feats that here this state, this country's ever had, really, right? So they ultimately tried to redo the whole city to make the traffic better, but of course, that's not really the case anymore. I mean, there's more traffic now that they ever thought, and it's still screwed. And we have tons and tons of one ways, and in Massachusetts, like it's our joke here is that we gave a child a crayon and was like, draw us a city. And they were like, all right. And they were like, okay, that's how we're going to build it. And that's what they did. And now we're suffering from it. Thank you. Thank you guys.
I
But
love
yeah,
it.
I'm from Mass. You can call me a masshole if you want. That's fine.
Asshole.
That's what we're being called, because we are aggressive drivers. We do not take anyone's shit when we're driving in Boston,
That's
or
fair.
anywhere in Massachusetts. I mean, you can call anybody, anything you want, but I mean, we like to think that we're actually pretty good drivers, but we're extremely aggressive, right? And then when
Hmm.
we see other drivers from other cities, New York or Connecticut or whatever, and then or New Hampshire, and we get pretty pissed off because they either drive too slow or they don't know how to drive at all, and that does mean that we don't know how to drive ourselves. We're just aggressive, very
No,
aggressive.
that's fair. That's fair because that's how it is over here. Like so, where I lived up in when I lived up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, a lot of it is an area very heavy when it comes to deer and all that other kind of stuff, right? So you're always driving a little more cautiously from that. And then when I later on, when I go into like places like the Twin Cities and stuff, and everyone's flying back and forth, 65, 75 miles an hour. That's only a suggestion.
Yeah.
And it's always crazy because I'm like, man, I don't like to be an aggressive driver, but like I guess I'm gonna have to be, like, and it really is kind of amazing where you go, how people drive depending on where you go.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Yeah.
can only imagine in Boston
Oh
and
yeah.
Massachusetts.
But I will tell you this: if you do come here, or even New York and Mass have wonderful independent film theaters that we still have. Something like the Brattle that we have up here. So if you're looking for independent film, and I mean, there's not many left. They're slowly disappearing, which is really sad. But if you're looking to find a good place to see something in the theater, the cinema, then yes, we still have some places up here left that you would probably enjoy very much.
That's
So
awesome. Why,
yeah.
why do you think they're disappearing off so much?
Well,
Is it the
it's
lack of
it's
interest?
no, it's just because of there's several things. Like LA's burning. It's on fire. Let's face it, right? I mean, it literally and physically it's on fire. you
Yeah.
know, and the industry has always been on rocky grounds for a very long time. And what's happened was when COVID hit, I mean, that ultimately uprooted and it destroyed everybody and everyone, and it really fractured and it showed how the industry really is, and it blew holes into a already sinking ship, really,
Mhm.
right? So with COVID and with the writer strike and the actor strike, also took a huge hit. I mean, with AI and with everything that's now happening, and with the economy, and with how the studios are ultimately just, they're greedy. I mean, we have a lot of problems, and a lot of these studios and producers are part of the problem. And so what's happening now is that there's only a few states within the U.S. that have tax incentives.
Mhm.
LA, Atlanta, New York, and Boston, right? And there's probably a couple other ones that I'm missing. So you get a lot of shows in Atlanta, right? You get some shows, if barely any shows here in Mass. You get some shows down in New York, maybe in Florida, but for the most part, a lot of the productions, they're leaving, the states. They're going up to Toronto. They're going up to, overseas. And so what's happening is that all the people that are working here are not getting work now, and it's getting
That makes
harder.
sense.
It's getting harder and harder and harder to find a job within the film industry. And we have a massive amounts of people who who are getting up there in age now, right? And they've been working in this industry a lot longer than me, a lot longer than you, a lot longer than most of us young guys, right?
Mhm.
And so, that's all they know because that's all they've been in, and they don't have either savings or they don't have any. If they weren't smart enough to put stuff away or try to get a 401k or do something, they're not really getting insurance because I mean, this is how this is. If you're not in a union,
Right.
then you're ultimately you're kind of screwed if you're a freelancer, really, right?
That makes
And
sense.
so, we have everybody right now is there's a lot of depression. It's not. I want to say that I like to be an optimistic human being. That's how I am. I like to say that there is light at the end of the tunnel where more productions will start popping up, more indie films, hopefully, more indie TV, I guess if you want to even call that. But right now, with everything that's going on, I think we're at a dead halt, and it's only getting worse by you know the more that these studios keep doing what they're doing. It's really it's ultimately it's killing everybody. And so they don't want to pay the money out, and so that's why they're trying to use AI as much as they can. And so they want to steal your likeness, they want to make money off that and not give you anything in return. And so and it's a big thing, it really is. But over the years, I being that I've worked in the industry for as long as I have been able to, I've been very fortunate. I've been very blessed with the things I've been able to work on, and I'm just very humble and super happy that I've been able to do things and work with other crew members from all over the years. Um, and I know you're going to ask me, what have you worked on?
I don't even need to say it.
I know, right? So for everybody that's going to be watching this, I worked on the first three seasons of The Walking Dead, first OG seasons. I worked on Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. Worked on The Mandalorian. Yes, the first season of Mando. I worked on
Best season.
the
Best
best
season.
season. I worked on Atlanta, Blue Bloods.
Oh, okay.
I worked on The Flash, Gotham. I worked on Castle Rock because, of course, that was shot here in Massachusetts. That was shot in Orange and Athol, Mass. And I worked on Dexter New Blood at the tail end of it. So technically, I didn't really get to work on it, but I kind of got to work on it. And then what else did I work on? And I worked on the Wahlburgers. Wahlburgers I worked on the most because that was again a Massachusetts show with the Wahlburgers, Donnie and Mark and and all and the other brother, and their mom. And I miss their mom so much. She was a joy to be around. I got stories about that too.
Oh, okay. So like I was. Oh, that's a huge repertoire. And that's a lot. So also with the I want
and
to start
and
with
that's
the
just that's just TV shows. That's just
oh
TV shows.
Jesus. That's the thing. Like, I'm under because I'm like, oh, okay. So um, when it comes to like, I'm gonna start with like the Wahlburgers, right? Where so you were doing like, was it like a whole TV show kind of thing? That was a whole TV show called the
Yeah,
Wahlburgers.
yeah,
I did not know they even had that.
The Wahlburgers. The Wahlburgers was about the family. It's actually about their restaurant actually that they have.
Yeah, the
Um,
restaurant's pretty good. Actually,
and
like I like
yeah,
that.
and it's not bad. The whole thing was it was kind of like a run and gun type shoot. I mean, they had a production, but over time it really started getting and productions wear on people over time, right? And so like I was bouncing on and off the show because I was also doing school, and I would come on as a PA, and that's kind of how I really started. Really, I mean that's how everyone usually starts as PA.
Right.
But I got to do a little bit of gaffing work, a little bit of electric work, and grip, and then that kind of spawned out the whole other things, over the years. And so, it kind of that and building my own stuff. I mean, technically, I started doing. How am I going to say this? I started off doing sound engineering work back. That's originally what I started doing, right? And then from sound engineering work, I kind of went into stunts. So I was a stunt guy. Very
Oh.
brief, very brief. Um, I never broke a bone, which is funny. I never broke a bone. I was thrown off a building. I did roll a couple cars. I was set on fire. Yeah, I went through a couple breakable doors, bounced off a door once. That was fun, uh, because that wasn't breakable, which they lied to me. And I went, and they, yeah, that sucked. That hurt. Um, I gone through a couple windows, had some bottles broken over my head. Yeah, some things over the years. And then it was like, you know what? After jumping off the building into the bag, I was like, maybe this isn't for me. I want to try to go down a directing route. See if I can. And I did. I was coming out of Mount Wachusett Community College for broadcasting, and on the side, when I wasn't actually doing my schoolwork, I was actually doing indie work, for other friends and stuff. And so that's kind of how I really kind of started. And then once I got out of broadcasting, I made my first feature film, which was called Freelance, which nobody has ever seen. I want to put it up online so everyone can see it, see my first feature film, and you can criticize it all you want. It's fine. But I did that as a stepping stone for myself because I wanted to get my feet wet. I wanted to know if I could direct or produce or do screenwriting or, or not at all. Maybe I just sucked. I don't know. And also doing editing work too, right?
Mhm.
So as a technical person, I was very limited to what I could use for my first feature film. And so I was shot on a little Vizio 1080p camcorder, right? And it's a shitty fucking camera. They don't even make them anymore. But what I did was, and it was really bad for low lighting, right? Of course.
Mhm.
So what I did was I utilized the idea of how to capture low lighting, in certain ways. And so I would line up the camera to, like, let's say if I was doing a night scene, I would try to put lights as much as I can in certain areas because I knew that the camera could only just pick up so much, right? And so I had to think about lighting, because of the the camera couldn't pick up as much. So that's when I started, getting into doing more, genie work, and from that point on, kind of
What do
started
you mean by
doing more
genie
of it.
work?
Grips and electrics,
Okay.
you know, uh, and so like, uh, grips are the ones that are rigging everything, right? Electrics, of course, are, supplying power,
Hmm.
and then we have gaffers and grips, and gaffers are doing the lightings and a whole bunch of stuff, and so we, you know, that's kind of how I started, and we, little bit.
Well,
Did
and,
I-
and that's and I think that's the thing too is like a lot of times it's just how you get to get your foot in the door is
yeah,
is in the much smaller. I've worked in just in my like in all my careers I've had or like jobs I've had. I don't want to call them careers because they don't last long enough to be called a career. Um, but like I've worked with a dude who was a screen editor, a script editor for he was working the last time I talked to him, which was it was a couple years ago, but he was working on the Rings of Power season two,
yes,
that one. And then I worked with another dude who would did lights and stuff for like the movie Rudy, and he did like a bunch of other stuff
pretty,
like that too, which
yeah,
is kind of funny to me because they both also had the same name. So
yeah,
they both had
yeah.
the name of Jared. So this is kind of I was like, oh, should I change my name? Will I get
That's
will
that's
I get a
funny.
better chance? Like, and it seems like it is a very it's an interesting industry because it seems like whenever people talk about it, it's an industry that just seems so different than everything else that would be like a normal I don't want to say a normal job, but like a typical 9 to 5 or something like that.
Hmm.
A lot of moving parts, a lot of go here, do this, because it's like such an I'm guessing like everything's kind of on a time crunch,
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So it's-
There's a lot of time, for actors to sit around on a film set. Um, I mean, people say, "Oh, how much time did you spend on the day? Well, we could have been sitting around for 10 hours and only got to shoot like one scene. I mean that could I mean that's over exaggeration there, but
But still, yeah,
but for
it's
the most part, that's also might not be an over, an exaggeration. And so, there is a lot of downtime because the thing is that yes, you have to move the camera to get a different shot, and that means you have to rotate everything, and you want to make sure that you don't see the crew inside, in the camera. And you also have to think about continuity wise. Like, let's say if someone's sitting around and they have something on the table and something gets knocked over, so they have to put it back, and they have to make sure that the head was in the right way. And you have to go through takes, right? You have to be like, oh, okay, I want to block out this scene. So you're blocking out the scene. That can take some time. And if you have like a lot of extras in the back, they're going to be sitting around for a while because ultimately you're trying to set things up. And if you have explosions or whatever else you got, I mean, productions take a lot of time. And I think for the most part, a lot of people don't see that because they're like, oh, well, the finished product. Wow, that was cool. But it takes a lot of time to shoot. I mean, it can take months and it takes years, for the most part because people's schedules
right.
don't won't always just line up, and sometimes the actors are not always in the same scene, right, with
Mm,
other actors, and so one actor could be shooting for 1 month, leave to go do something else while they're shooting other scenes, and then that actor will come back to finish up something else, right?
mm,
And so, there is a lot of moving parts, and it can get pretty crazy. And so, like when I tell everybody this, I say, the you know when you're doing production, you have to make sure your pre-production is solid. Things will always happen in every step of the level that you're doing, like from pre, pro, and post, right? So
right.
pre-production, production, post-production. So the three P's, PPP. Just remember that, PPP. And pre-production is where you're building your script, you're building out your funding, you're getting your producer, you're getting the crew, the cast, everything, and you're trying to line up the schedule for the production. And you
Right.
want to make sure that you have that as solid as humanly possible, because if you just go right into production, you are going to ultimately either shoot yourself in the foot or you somehow, lightning is striking for you and gold might happen. I mean, that's a rare occasion. I mean, it really is. And because when you're on a production, things are going to turn around and get you. You don't know what's going to happen. You know,
Right.
you
No, that
could
makes
get
sense.
in the car, put the key in, try to get on the ignition, and the car won't start. Or the tires blown out, or something else, or your actor is sick, or the whole crew gets sick, or
Oh,
you could
COVID
be
was a
huge,
huge thing.
huge thing. That really just disrupted it killed everybody, right? You know, I guess if we thought the mega wave came down on us, I mean, it's still sweeping us up.
Oh, and absolutely though. Like, and that was, I could only imagine, like from that side, because I think a lot of consumers, and I'm sure I know you've heard me say this before, and I've talked about with the gaming industry, but I feel like it's the same when it comes to a lot of industries, is a lot of the fans only see things from the side of, like you mentioned, the finished product.
Yeah.
Um, and so when they sit there and they'll talk about, well, this should have been done differently, blah blah blah. I don't understand why they, like, let's say someone, they did a scene like this, or they made a video game with a certain, the graphics should have been better. We don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that you have to put into play before you just sit there and say that something, is
Mhm.
bad, or something is whatever. I guess it still sits in the gaming industry,
Yep.
but it's something that I mentioned with Sonic. I brought up Sonic 06, and yeah, Sonic 06
Yeah.
it's not a good game. We know it's not. It's gameplay wise, it's not good. It did show some positives, but overall, it's kind of a net negative. However, there was a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes that was not known about.
Hmm.
or the most unfortunate part is actually people just don't care about what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, they don't.
um
Yeah.
it's I'll use, because Sonic was basically in like I think it was like less than a year, about a year to less than a year, and they lost people, they lost creative directors, like that, big issue there. I also think about Mappa with the whole issues with the controversy with JJK.
Yes.
That was horrid,
Yes.
absolutely horrid. And the fact that I still saw people who are like, well, I just want my product out, it just gave me a sense of entitlement, from them, that was just, it would set me, like, if I heard my brother say that, like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm smacking the shit out of him.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
oh, it got me
I
so mad.
I completely agree. Like, you know, productions have problems. I mean, everything does. Game industry is filled with stuff like that. I mean, even on anime, right? Just almost anything, really. You know, and it's, if you don't have the money, of course, you always have to have the income for this stuff. You have to have the backing, you have to have the funding, and you have to have you have to have the people to do this, because this takes a long time, right? Trying to build a game, trying to build a set, or trying to build a film, or even a stage play, just anything, right? If you don't have the people to do it, you're not going to get anything done, right? And it's also how you treat people as well, right? I mean, people, I mean, in our industry, everybody gets exploited in a lot of ways, right? I
Right.
mean, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
see that in the visual effects department.
Oof.
These guys are working tirelessly, and they don't get paid as much, and they just get swept up, right? And
Hmm.
so you get to really see how, that's been affecting everybody. And I mean, I'm just gonna say this: I'm not a Disney fan. I don't like how Disney operates on certain things. And I mean, I've worked for them. I've worked with Disney, right? I worked on Mando, and I've worked on several other things. But um, the thing is that, a lot of the stuff that's been coming out, really does show like how these studios and producers, have really been nickel and dime everybody, right? And so
Right.
it does affect everybody, right? And so, it's not great. It doesn't feel good. It really does put a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and it's, you know, I'd like
Hmm.
to see a change. I think
No,
everybody
no,
wants a
absolutely,
change, you
like,
know?
absolutely, like, I was, there was two movies, and one of them I'm going to use based by Disney. They all came around. I think they came out both around the same year, and these movies too were a real example to me of someone who came in with like a creative passion and corporate enterprise.
Hmm.
And it is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness,
Yes.
and everything, everywhere, all at
Oh, it
once.
was. Yes.
Fantastic. I love everything, everywhere, all at once.
Me
I
too.
think so good,
Me too.
and it felt so unique, so refreshing, so the different universes they go to, the back and forth between, you know um, the main character, is that Michelle?
Michelle Young.
You said something. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and she did fantastic in the movie.
I love her to death.
Like, I loved her. I love Jamie Lee Curtis. So she just, when actors are just having fun, I think that's like where like the things really shine. And I'm like, I mean, if you're telling me that I get like hot dog fingers, and like the whole scene where like they're just both rocks and they're having a conversation, there's a conversation being held just in rocks, and I'm like, I feel like this is great. And then I watched the Multiverse of Madness, and I'm not going to say they didn't try,
Yeah.
but the one thing that was getting me really upset was the fact that your concept was a multiverse, and we really only went to like two universes,
Yes.
and we barely got to see any of those universes. We didn't get to see much at all of them. And then
Mhm.
you had a little montage of just different universes, and one of them was like a paint universe, and it was just like, I was like, this is, to me, I was like, this is it. This is all you could have done
Yeah.
in this amount of time. This actually really disappoints me.
Yeah. And you have
Um,
to, and so Sam Raimi, of course, is the director of that one, and the thing is that Sam Raimi, of course, Sam Raimi made Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, but also The Evil Dead. Oh yes, I love The Evil Dead. But Sam Raimi, I love Sam Raimi. But for him, I can only imagine what he was going through when he took on that job, and DC, Marvel, I mean Disney, really, they they have a formula. They want to stick to it, and they don't want anyone else to kind of change things up. And I think probably I can only imagine what Sam Raimi was going through because Sam Raimi doesn't really like to be told what to do. I mean, for the most part, he's pretty good at trying to make something for himself, or like be creative, and he brings in his comedy. I mean, you can see that, of course, but yeah, you are right. I mean, you don't really get to see any other, any of the multiverse within that. And I think because of them limiting his creativity and trying to stick to that formula, really shows that Marvel is not taking chances. They're not taking chances, and that's why A24 took chances. Right? They're like, wow, we see this, we're going to take a chance on this, and that's what I think is the biggest difference is that A24 might not be a big company because they might only have a certain amount of funding that they have,
Right.
while Disney is a conglomerate. I mean, they got every dollar in the world. A24 it goes, you know what, we're going to take a chance on these directors, and we're gonna see where this goes. And they did, and that's why I love A24 in the way of giving their directors, the open creativity, on getting their projects made, right? And
Hmm.
there's not that many companies out there that are really doing that. I guess you could say Blumhouse, but Blumhouse
Blumhouse
is
is
Blumhouse's problems.
Blumhouse. Okay, so there's something that I always I love it. I love it. It goes off between different uh two different shows, right? You might find this funny. I find it funny personally. Is so the very much that I feel with A24 and Blumhouse is how I felt with Tales from the Crypt in the Twilight Zone.
The Twilight Zone.
Both of them are good, but the Twilight Zone is, especially the night Rod Sterling's Twilight Zone,
Yes.
it's very much like a eating like a porterhouse steak.
Yes.
While
Yes.
it's like the Tales from the Crypt is like that greasy cheeseburger that that you probably shouldn't
Shouldn't
eat
eat it,
it,
but you're
but
gonna
it's
eat it.
just good.
Yeah.
You can't
Yep.
eat it.
Yep.
And that's how I feel with Blumhouse. Blumhouse makes these horror movies that are a little more streamlined. They're still good. I still enjoy them. They still got fun little concepts in there. But A24 then comes out with like Hereditary.
Yes.
And it's one that you have to sit there, and I had to sit there and rewatch it multiple times to fully grasp the concept of it. Same with like something like I know like I mean it's the same director, but it's like Midsummer.
Yep.
Midsummer, really good. Also touches on my fear of like the stuff like bright lights and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, a horror movie in daytime is that's difficult to pull off.
Yes, it is. And on top of that, The Witch.
Oh, I haven't.
So remember, I mean, Robert Eggers, right? I mean, A24 kind of gave him his first film. And what's really funny about The Witch?
Hmm.
I worked on that.
Oh,
I worked on The Witch. Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I worked on that. Robert Eggers was great. I enjoyed meeting him, getting to talk to him a little bit, for the most part, and meeting Anna Taylor Joy, and all the rest of the other cast. I was on that for a very brief time. Unfortunately, I wasn't on the entire production,
Mm.
but being on that was really cool. I really enjoyed my time on that. That was probably one of the better films I've worked on over the years. But yeah, The Witch. But A24 has been slowly, showing that that they're a force to reckon with. I mean, the movies that they've been putting out slowly. I mean, they've been winning some awards.
They have, and I
And
will say that
they're
is
they're a
dope.
smart company. They're a smart company.
I
So
had to look up because there's a couple of them that I wasn't fully sure, and the one like I wanted to see, I have not seen it yet, was Bo is Afraid, because I
Beau
do
was
like
afraid.
watching.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Beau was afraid. It's not going to be for everybody. Um, it is. It's like watching anxiety happen throughout the entire film, right?
Hmm.
And yes, I mean there's a lot of mixed reviews on it. A lot of people say that it was just too long and it's very convoluted. But the idea about it is that what would happen if somebody would have anxiety and paranoia at the same time, and that was going through almost all the way through the entire show run of the film, right? And so you're seeing the protagonist kind of like lose himself and jump back between certain things and just completely kind of not all centered there, and so it's like watching anxiety happen through the entire show run. And so it can be very unnerving for a lot of people, and it can also be like, oh man, like Jesus Christ, when is this going to stop? It doesn't
Oh
stop.
no,
It won't
absolutely.
stop.
I've done some of these here. Like I've always fantasized about writing stories, getting
Yeah.
recognition, and I think that's every person who writes. Like I know even myself too. I write because one day for me, I want my the kids that I have one day to go and see and be like, oh yeah, he that was cool that he wrote this, and I want that to be a thing. When I
Mhm.
looked at A20, there's one more movie that I did not see, and I think it got mixed receptions. But I remember when it came out, it like blew up, and that was because it touched on some people getting upset over it, and it's the movie called Men. And
Yes,
I
men.
never got a chance to see it. I never got a chance to see it. I've only
Um,
seen like bits and clippets, which was
so
interesting.
so men. I'm actually that is Alex Garland's only film I'm not a big fan of. Now I understand it as much as I can. You know, I don't want. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I want you to watch it, but I will say that it's about a woman who is traumatized, who has gone through some pretty horrific things with her boyfriend or
Yeah.
husband, and she ultimately tries to get away from that, and it's really about toxic masculinity throughout the entire film. Really, you get to see that a lot, and so it's it has it's it's a very interesting film, but there's something about it that I never really I don't know. I think it's missing several things, and I also feel like there's there's more to the film that might have been cut out that could have probably added a little bit more context to it.
And that seems to
You know?
happen a lot because I
Yeah.
did watch it was like because they had like you get clippets every once in a while, and I got a clippet of the I would say I always call it the top, the scene that really was what's going to encapsulate, and
Hmm.
it was that little fucking creature thing that just like started, yeah. And it's I was watching and I'm just like, oh, wow, this dude pulled a straight Orochimaru, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, um, I'm never gonna be able to look at that movie the same way again. Now fucking saying that, but like, but it's definitely, and I think, and possibly part of it could be because sometimes I feel like it's a good message, wrong messenger
Mm.
kind of situation where sometimes especially if in a movie that's about toxic masculinity and a woman who has to deal with it, sometimes it's better to come from a woman that's going to have a different perspective on it than what a man's going to.
Hmm.
Because if you had a movie like I don't know, like we'll use like Django Unchained, right?
Okay. Fair enough.
And you had a person who doesn't really know that kind of history,
Uh huh.
it's gonna feel really off.
Yeah.
Kind of like the last Airbender. But, but no, we're not supposed. That the movie not supposed.
We don't talk about that movie. We also don't talk about Dragon Ball the movie either.
Oh,
Those two things we don't
I
talk.
will say I'm gonna push back on that one just a little bit. So
Uh
I
oh.
said that
Oh
Dragon Ball
no.
Evolution is a movie I can't hate. and it's because it's so overly goofy and ridiculous
Okay, fine.
that honestly, there's something about it that is kind of like it's stupidly appealing. Like,
Fair
but
enough.
is it good? Absolutely fucking not.
No, it's
But
horrible.
like, it's
It's a
horrible.
it's a good bad film. That's what we
It is. It is a good bad
that's
film.
what we call it. It'd be like, like for me, like good bad films would be like Troll 2. Like everyone knows Troll 2, right? Troll 2 or
Right.
The Room.
Those had
Um,
the room.
I mean, I could go on and on and on, but those two, for instance, are great. And but Dragon Ball Evolution, yeah, I mean that's definitely thrown in there. But The Last Airbender is not a good film. I don't consider it a good bad film. I just call it a bad dumpster fire of trash.
That's that. No,
And
that's totally fair too. And that's that's the thing that's funny about him. No, don't talk about my childhood
yeah,
trauma. Don't.
I love it.
I will. I'll do my best to not talk about that, Brett. But it is. It's one of those fantastic. Like it's fantastically terrible, but it's done in a way that's it's kind of fun. And I feel like there's movies that I can sit there and I know that they're bad, but there's something about them that I can't hate from it. And then
Yeah,
there's ways like The Last Airbender. I'm actually gonna put Transformers 2 because I fucking hate that movie.
yeah,
Um,
that's also not a great
I
film.
just not a good, but it's not good. Where like we watch it and you're like, I just don't, I don't have a good feeling watching this. The other one I can be like, yo, I could straight up make this a drinking movie, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but yeah, like I will say there's I think those two are. Oh, I'll also include Netflix's Death Note in one of those that I felt was just disrespectful. It was a disrespectful movie. I don't think it's the worst. Just think it's like one of those where I watched it and I was like, this is
What about Full Metal Alchemist, the live action?
never got a chance. Never got a chance. I've never seen Full Metal Alchemist. I have
Really?
never seen Full Metal Alchemist, and
Really?
I keep telling myself
Okay.
like I'm gonna go watch it. I'm gonna get to it, and then I'm like, I go and I'm like, oh, I'll go watch another JJK fight for like
Yeah.
the 18th time.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, look, if you're gonna do Full Metal, I mean, you have to watch the. I always tell everyone you should at least watch the original and then Brotherhood, because Brotherhood is actually better than the original, which is surprising because most people would think, really, how can that actually be possible? Yes, it can be. It depends on how you actually, you know, do the story the right way, right?
right,
And so I know that a lot of people had problems with Full Metal, but it is worth watching at least the first initial show run, and then seeing Brotherhood. Brotherhood is a lot better in my opinion, and I mean, yeah, you should give it a chance. You should really give it a chance.
I definitely will, and I think that does happen where you get the moments where you get a show that's actually uh, that turns out to be better than the other original adaptation. And I think, like to me, it's actually that's why I'm gonna hype on the train again. But Bleach's Thousand Year Blood War.
Hmm.
There was a lot behind the scenes between the manga writer Taichi Kubo getting sick, being he was rushed with it, so he didn't get to do everything that he wanted to do. And in this version here, he's being able to incorporate things that he wasn't able to do in this, and it's only turning out better for it.
Yeah.
The anime will be like the anime of Thousand Year Blood War will eventually be the original. I would say the main source that you're gonna go to
Yeah.
when it comes to it, which I think is doesn't typically always happen.
Yeah, and I actually would agree with you on that. I mean, reading anything from a manga or just a book in general will always be probably the best source material than anything, because trying to adapt something, there is only so much you can do with the production that you can have, right? So, trying to develop a show that's perfectly done is never going to happen, and you're never going to be able to get every context within any of the characters. And the biggest thing is that what I hate, and a lot of these shows have it, is that there's just too much filler. And it's like, why do we have to have throwaway episodes when we could just develop something that actually has a really good story?
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that's just because of production, and it's just because of how I mean how this industry is, right? And so it's never for fans are always going to have a lot of bias on every show that they come up with or that they watch.
Exactly.
And yeah, and it does. And to Smiling Jack 2 here, yes, filter does it just ruins everything, and it's not just Bleach, it's Naruto, it's
Oh yeah.
Buntu, it's Dragon Ball, I mean all these shonen, even My Hero Academia has stuff because they repeat. It's a repeat after repeat after repeat, and it's like, well,
Exactly.
I'm. It's cool that you can repeat something, but to a point, you're already bashing everybody over the head that might already know all of this, right? Right?
Oh, like you talking about Naruto's backstory for like the
Yeah,
80th time.
yeah, and it's
Like
and
it's
it's
just
just and it's just like in My Hero Academia, like you see this over and over and over, and it's like, well, that's cool, but now you're taking up that short, brief couple seconds that could have been just for the show, instead of just adding a little bit more, just to make the episode a little long, a little longer, or
Mhm.
just to fill it in a little bit more. And it's like, do you really need to do that? I mean, do we have to really do this? I mean, and that's why for me, for anime standpoint, right? I don't like shows like this. I never grew up like I grew up with Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon, and I mean, I was born in 1986, right? And so right, I'm now 38. I feel like I'm 138 due to working on all the film industry and everything else that I've gone through. But the thing is that it's about you know, for me, I grew up on story development, right? So like Berserk, you know, Evangelion, I guess you could say even I guess Gundam, right?
Mhm.
And so you had all these shows that were very fine tuned and that actually just went in because I mean they didn't give you they only had 25 episodes, right? Or 26 episodes
Right.
or maybe even 50 episodes or so, and so you really had to like nail it down and actually create a story, right?
Right.
And so, like, we have all these shows that are like 100, 400, 1,000, something like One Piece. I
Right.
will never get into One Piece because there's just too many episodes to go through, and there's too much of that is filler, and trying to get the story out of it is very convoluted, and then, and so on and so forth. And so, like, all the power to anyone that's in the comments or who's ever watching this, like, watching, love what you love, of course, but I mean,
No, no,
Joyce,
you're absolutely
give a
correct. And
story.
so, like, because I'm thinking, because I'm like, I feel like when it comes to filler in anime, I think filler can be done correctly, but it always should be something that enhances the world. I know I'm gonna hype back to Bleach on this one because
Yeah.
one, I'm a Bleach stan at this point, but like, the thing is, I know with them, like something that happened with Kubo is that, um, he one thing that he really wanted to have issue I should say he had issues with is a lot of times a lot of the stuff that he made got switched around or taken, Studio Parrot, I think who did it at the time, took his work and then did their own thing with it,
Yeah.
and got him, it actually kind of like pissed him off because he was like, whenever you'd walk in the show, you'd be like, yo, this is not what I wrote. So like when they did go and do like some of the movies, I know in, for example, the Thousand Year Blood War, I believe that he's connecting certain portions
Mhm.
of it. Um, so I think that part was always something interesting too. That's something that I wanted to kind of bring in because I feel like, filler such as, like, I know Boruto had a bunch of filler. Basically, the first like 100 fucking episodes are all just filler shit, and I I wouldn't have hated it so much, and I do think that's why Boruto got such a bad rep because for the manga aspect, because I read the manga monthly.
Mhm.
And the manga is good, especially because now they've hit a time skip. Everything is a lot more serious. Everything is much more, it feels more like, it almost like feels like a more serious, like towards an end game of Shippuden
Mhm.
now, where we're not messing with stuff no more. and I do enjoy that. I love when Naruto gets serious, when Boruto gets serious. That's when this show is really at its peak.
Hmm.
Because it does feel like there's sometimes a disconnect of where, like, they do too much goofy stuff, and some
Yeah.
stuff just don't make sense to me.
Yes.
But I do agree that, like, once, like, I don't mind like a movie or something every now and then. That's fine. I think like how they did the Mugen Train arc, or
Yeah.
the Mugen Train movie for Demon Slayer, I think was actually pretty fucking dope.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
that was an experience right there.
Yeah. I agree. Well, and then of course, they of course broke that up into the season, as well, and they actually added a little bit more to it than the film goes. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that was really smart of them to do, because I mean that segment was really short, right?
Right.
And so yeah, it's
We're
good.
getting the One
Yeah.
Piece fans. You don't upset
I'm
the
trying not to upset you guys, but
Giga
uh,
Chat fan base. Like, it's still a lot. I mean, it's
it
still a lot of
is.
episodes. Like 10% isn't actually all that much in terms of like the in percentage wise, but that's still like what, like over 100 episodes. So
Yeah.
it's still pretty nuts. And I think like I feel like I said, I feel like as long as it connects better with the world itself. I love the Zanpakuto arc from Bleach. I actually think that was really, I think that was, for the most part, that was actually really well done.
Hmm.
And I also like that they kept a couple of the designs
Yeah.
for it. So, for example, Captain Kyokatsu, Shansui's Zanpakuto, they kept that design from that. I'm glad that they did and make it all. And her design is absolutely stellar, and it made all the more sense for it.
Hmm.
I I don't know why they. Looking back at it now, thinking about it off the top of my head, um, I don't know why they changed Zabimaru's from what it did, because it's just like a bamboo or a baboon with like a snake tail, and then the other one is like a fucking full ass baboon woman, and then
Yeah.
like I'm just like, this isn't even what. Like, how do you? Like, I just imagine like Kubo sitting there looking at his design and then looking at the anime one, is like, these things are not the same.
Yeah. 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 What did you guys do? How did you come with this? How did you come up with this idea?
Like, so
Who's act? Who's doing? Or did you guys smoke something?
I was on my computer and I was like, dude, what if the baboon was a woman? And then that was it. Like, that was all it
Yeah.
was after that. So I was like, and it was just such a interesting, like, why did we do this? Um, like, so I enjoyed them overall. Overall, I did enjoy it, but I agree. Like, it's there's kind of pulling back to it. There is a lot when it comes to the production, pre-production, and even like, you have your own your own short films up on YouTube, and even I've always wondered, even for like some of them, like I'm gonna go back to U2 is the one I go back to, because the first one I watched, so it's like the first one on the top of my head all the fucking time, and like that one isn't very long, but I
It's
always
not
wondered
wrong.
how long did that
That was
uh
shot. That was shot in one day. We
in
did
one
that
day.
in one day.
Okay.
It took quite a while to shoot that in one day. But yeah, yeah, and you're right. Normally, sometimes productions, of course, can last could be a 1 day thing. It could be 2 days, 3 days. It can be even months or even years, right? And I was saying this earlier, where it depends on scheduling, it depends on time, depends on budget. Really, I mean that's the biggest thing, because when you're making something, I mean, the biggest thing is that you have to feed your film crew. You have to feed people. If you do not do that, you are screwing yourself.
Everyone
Uh,
gets a sandwich.
Everyone has to have a sandwich. So, I guess before I get into my short, let me tell you a story, because I like telling stories. I have tons of stories, and trust me, I could talk for hours, and you could. I hope you bring me back up again so I can
Oh,
share
dude,
more,
absolutely, absolutely.
because I have so many great insights in the films I've worked on and the TV shows I've worked on, and my own stuff, that ultimately I like to think that I'm actually professor at this point, because,
Mm.
and on top of that, I own so much. I own a massive film collection. I know we've been talking about anime and stuff for a little bit, but but here's a great story for you. For everyone that's in the chat and everyone that's going to be watching this, um, I was working on a production. I was working with these gaffers at the time, or sorry, grips. I was working with the grips at the time, and this director, I didn't really know him very well. The crew was already working with him prior to, and I came in because a friend dragged me on to this production.
Mm.
And I guess from what he did was he was like, "Hey, I'm going to tell my crew that I'm not going to feed anybody," but he never told his actors this. And so everybody was shooting this one day, and I was with my friend, and he was like, "Hey, listen, just to let you know, this guy doesn't really like to feed anybody. We might have to go out and go get our own food." I'm like, "Okay, cool. As long as I know that, you know." And but the actors didn't know this, and so everybody was kind of pissed off that this guy was putting money into, like, he supposedly had the money to do so, but I guess he wasn't doing it. Well, there was more things behind the scenes that were happening that I had no idea about. And he would call 20 minutes, or he's like, "Okay, we're going to go on a break for like 30 minutes or whatever." Right. And he probably should have been like, "Oh, hey, if we do that, go get lunch or do something for yourself. I can't pay you. I can't get anything. I'm sorry." That's what he should have done, but he never did. And so what he did was he would walk off set, and the grip crew were like, we're just going to follow this guy. We just want to see where he's going when he walks away from his own set. So they went and followed him, and he ordered pizza to his car for himself.
Oh no!
And so he was feeding himself, taking a small break, and then coming back, and then trying to keep going when everybody was on empty, right? And so this is what happens. Kid you fucking not, because it's amazing. The grips call in to everybody, and they go, "Hey, this guy ordered pizza to his car. Make sure you tell everyone to GTF out of there." And I mean, everyone left. All the crew took all their gear. All the actors walked. Everybody left the set. And as soon as that director showed up, everybody was gone. And this is what happens next. He goes back to his car, and he sees a little note on his car that says, "Feed your fucking crew." Pardon my French, but feed your fucking crew. And they slashed all four of his tires.
Oh my god!
They slashed all four of his tires, and they put the note on and saying, "Feed your fucking crew if you ever do this ever again," and probably some other things on that. I don't know, but whoever did that ultimately went to go and show that, hey, by the way, if you want to be a douchebag and you want to and think that you have an ego and want to do this, all ships raise with crew, on all ships sink with directors or producers or anybody else. So if you want to send your Titanic into the iceberg, you're more than welcome to do so. But you are going to burn yourself. And this is what happens. You can burn bridges, and so I always tell everybody the story because it's a really good lesson. Don't be a dick. Don't be an asshole. Don't have an ego. I mean, it's okay to kind of have an ego and to do your thing, but there's a time and a place when the thing is that you're with a film family. You're with a crew that you should have a lot of respect for because you're the one that hired them or your producer hired them, and they're there for you and to build something that everybody is involved with, right? And so don't, if people burn bridges. It's how this industry happens. It happens in every single thing that we do. You're not always going to like everybody that you work with, and that's fine. That's okay. But as long as there is a two-way conversation and a way of communicating to your actors and to your crew and understanding what is happening, then, there you go. And that's what you need, right? But anyway, but for me, I have always put out all my crew with respect. And so like when I film with or when I do directing work, I put my PAs first because to me I treat them like gold, and PAs get shit on consistently, and
Those are
without
the
our
assistants, right?
yeah, these are the production assistants. Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
we call them. They are called the bitches of the industry because they get shit on consistently, right?
right.
And it's not always a luxury. It's not fun, and that's where you kind of make yourself, and that's kind of where you get a backbone. That's kind of how you get into the industry, right? Because you're not just going to jump in to be a director or a producer or a scriptwriter right off the bat, or even genie or camera or whatever.
Right.
I mean, you
No,
have
that
to
makes
learn this, right? And so what I do is for my PAs, um, I put them in positions where I want them to grow. I want them to communicate with, the people that they're working with, and are the departments that they're in. And so I make sure that I say always ask a question if you don't know. If you don't know something, ask because they're going to give you an answer, and never be afraid to ask a question. Because you should. And the thing is that in our industry, there's a lot of terminology that you may or may not know, right? And that goes for here in America, but that also goes for other places, Canada, the UK, other parts of the world. People have different phrases. People say
right.
different things. People call different items a different name. So you may think, oh, this is a C stand here, but it could be called something else overseas. You never know, right? Should be
Hmm.
like a universal term, which C stands for the most part are, but they could have a different terminology somewhere else, and or a flag, or some sort of gobo arm, or lighting, or I mean there is just so much gear within our industry, not just with the film industry, but with also with the AV industry, with broadcasting. There's just so much gear out there that you may not ever get your hands on every single thing, because depending on what area of the field you're working in, you're going to be using something different from what other people are using, right? Because
Right.
broadcasting is not film. AV might be a little bit about broadcasting, but it's not always about film either. So AV is kind of like in the middle, right? And broadcasting and film are on the both different perspectives, right? You might be
Right.
using cameras and stuff in all three, but you're not using, a lot of other gear and everything else, right? And
Right.
so,
Right.
but anyway, but the thing about for my work, and I tell everyone, at least I I really love the stuff that I've been able to work on and do and shoot as a director. And U2 is one of those projects where, I mean, I was using. So when I first made my first feature film, boy, now I'm jumping all over my head now. But my first feature film, I used it as a stepping stone. I graduated out of Mount Winchester Community College for broadcasting, made my first feature, went to film school. So I already had a feature before I went to film school. And I use that to know if I wanted to direct or edit or produce. And come to find out, I suck as a producer, but I'm really good at directing and editing. I love editing. I just love figuring out problems and how to fine tune a scene, and work with stuff that unfortunately you may not have, because a lot of footage is not always great, right? When you get when you get it back.
Right.
So trying to figure out how to tell a story when you have to take scenes out, or or if they have to reshoot or whatever, or, and all that. But so I made U2 and Visitant out of my directing course that I did at Fitchburg State University. A lot of my other work came out after, of that. Actually, Turkey with a Side of Blood, um, U2, Sick, and Visitant all came out of Fitchburg State. He kindly stopped for me, came out after.
I was
Um,
actually going to just talk about, because I did watch that one too. That we kindly stopped for me, and that one, it was interesting because it was like, my brain just kept going to different areas.
mhm.
Like I was like, okay, so what is this? What is his, what is his purpose? Like I I liked that one a lot. Um,
Okay.
I did. I actually had a lot of fun with that one. But I also I love like I mean the whole thing is it's only 3 minutes long. You know, I mean it's not long, but there is a lot to unpack. At least in my view, in there.
Hmm.
You know, and I enjoy that. I enjoy those kind of like something really short, but I enjoy something that there's a lot that could keep going, and it kept me. It did for those only those 3 minutes. It kept me guessing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like spoon feeding my audience. And that's the biggest thing about me. I don't like spoon feeding my actors and I don't like spoon feeding my audience. I want them to have a conversation. I want them to think because that's what film is, right? If you tell everybody exactly what you are what everything is, at least in the trailer, you don't need to see the movie anymore. What the fuck is the point of that, right?
Right. Well,
But
you just get Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball, exactly, right? So the thing is that I like films, or I like directing films or shorts that I can at least, allow people to have a conversation after, right? So, like for instance, for like you two, right? It's about and for anyone that's in here that has not seen it, but not to spoil anything, but you two, a man finds out that his wife is cheating, and he goes up and over the extremes about how he's going to resolve the situation. And in Visitant, it's about a town that's being attacked by an unknown presence, and he kindly stopped for me as about a man who ultimately is trying to uh, do something good on his last legs out, right? And there's more to that than you know. And so um, and so when you watch these, you kind of it kind of leaves you going, wow, okay, what else is there? What else can we, what else can happen? Visitant was actually supposed to be a feature film, and one day I would like to make it into a feature film. At least I would like to try, because I really wanted to tell more about the story. But yeah, and I thank you, for watching my stuff. A lot of people don't get to see my work, which is really sad. I try to post it up everywhere I can.
Oh no,
But
absolutely. And for everyone else who's also in the comments too, make sure check out Critical Film over on YouTube. That's where you're gonna see Viciant, you're gonna see you two, and you're gonna see He Kindly Stopped for Me.
and then
Um,
and then over at my Vimeo page, you can see all my shorts, all the rest of the shorts and stuff, and some of the music videos I worked on, and some of the things I've actually produced. I have some more work I need to post up, but I haven't been able to really um, to really post as much as I should. But I usually try to one of your one of the comments just pops up. So I tell my
oh
audience
yeah.
that's right.
Tell my audience a certain show or movie I like. I usually say it's in my opinion, and you can decide for yourself on a certain type of media whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
This is true. I usually just tell them that everything I say is law. So I mean, it is absolutely fact,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there's no opinion.
And it's okay, if you see my stuff. I mean, you can criticize it all you want, and I love that because personally, I believe in criticism. I believe in good criticism. Um, and actually talking about that, I'm so when I shot you two in Visitant when I was coming out of my directing course, and this is going to be a big thing for everybody. My professor at the time, in her syllabus was no sex, no drugs, no guns, no this, no that. There's like 28, 25 things on the syllabus that she didn't want to see in the short films that these students were gonna make, right? And I was like, well, I already made a feature film that has to deal with a hitman who has morals, who kills people. um, so how about what happens if I make something a little darker? And I thought to myself, I was like, well, I ultimately am not here for the professor. I'm here for myself. I want to make something that's good because I know that if I'm going to be leaving a university, a film, or I'm going to get a film degree, I want to produce something that I can be proud of, that I can show people on my reel when I get out that this is something that was able to do. I don't
Right.
give a fuck about the credits. I give a fuck about what I am making, and because I want to work in this industry. I want to have something that I can stand on and say, this is the work that I have, right? And this is what I've been able to do.
Mhm.
Um, and so I completely disregarded her syllabus. And so I shot you two. I bring it into class, and what happens is that all the students are like blown away. Nobody in the first, because we were supposed to make two short films, nobody could top mine, like nobody, right? And this one student gets up and he goes, "Listen, Carlo, I just want to say this is probably one of the best short films I've seen from any other student, and for the last 4 years that I've been here. I'm graduating. I'm taking this course because I don't need it really. I just need something before I graduate, and I'm just taking this course just to throw away. So I made a shitty little short film because that I don't really need anything from this." And I went,
Mhm.
okay. And he goes, "This is one of the best short films here at Fitchburg State University I've seen since Junk Mail." And Junk Mail is a famous short film that was shot many, many, many years ago, prior to even me coming in. And that was like kind of an avant-garde kind of David Lynch, little short about this guy who is running around this place that's like a labyrinth, and there's like mail all over the place, and he's trying to find something. It's been a while since I've seen it, and he just can't seem to find what he's looking for. And so what happens is she doesn't give me the respect. All the students do a Q&A with me, and she does not. And I go, okay, well, I like to know what you would think. And she goes, no, I'm not going to give you, I'm just going to give you the grade. And I was like, okay. So she gives me a grade. I get a C- on the grade. And I go, okay. And so I kick in her door. This is what I did. I don't think that people should take my advice when I say this. Don't kick in your professor's door unless if you're very heated. And so, but I kicked in her door, and I was like, Mary, question. You gave me a C-. I would really like to have. I would like to. I demand an answer because you never gave me one. So I would like one. And this is what she said to me. She goes, Carlo, you are never going to succeed in the film industry. You will never become a director, and you will fail because you didn't abide by my syllabus, and so you never listened to what I had to say. And I went, excuse me, what? And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah. She's like, no, you will never succeed at anything. And I said, Mary, I made my first feature film, and I watched some of your stuff, and I'm actually really not impressed with any of your documentarian work. And I said, I actually think that what you just told me is disrespectful, not just to me, but also to you as a profession, as a professor, because you should
Right.
be inspiring your fucking students. And I said, you know what? Okay, I can see where you're going now. Okay, I can see that. I was very heated, so I left, and we were supposed to take a quiz. And what I did was I walked into into class, and I stormed up, went in front of all the class members, and I said, "Excuse me, everybody. I have a thing I want to say." And Mary was like, What are you doing?" And I said, "No, no, Mary, no, no. This is how this is going to go down. I am going to say my piece, and I'm going to walk out of this class." And I said, "Listen," and I told every single student this. I said, Mary Baker said this to me. I think this is very disrespectful. And this might be disrespectful to all of you. But however you want to take this, you can take this with a grain of salt. And I said, every single one of you here may want to be a director. Every single one of you here maybe want to do producing or writing. You're in this class because you're challenging yourself, or at least you're trying to. Whatever you're trying to direct, whatever you're trying to do, you should be doing it not for her, but for you. This is your time to shine, your time to
Mhm.
bring something of value to yourself. And I said, all of you are doing something for you, and you need to learn. You need to communicate. You need to figure out how to talk to people. If you're shy, if you don't know how to, I mean, however, how, why, or however you are here, You got to benefit yourself, bring the value to yourself, and be proud of your work, even if it's
Right.
shit, because that builds the stepping stones of what you want to do with the rest of your life and within this industry, because none of you are going to succeed. Some of you are going to bounce out of this industry and go somewhere else because it's a hard industry to work in. And that happens. That is what happens. And so
Yeah.
I said that to her. I said, Mary, I am going to shoot my next short film, and I'm going to show you that I'm capable of doing something even bigger and better the way that I can in a very short time. And so that's why I made Visitant. And if you go from U2 to Visitant, you get even more locations. You get a hospital,
I
a
was gonna
police
say,
station.
yeah.
You get more interacted characters. And the thing about it is that it's about a town that's being invaded by an unknown entity, and people are disappearing one by one because how would you know? How would you know that it's safe to just be in your own home at night, sleeping in your bed, and all of a sudden you wake up and just like that, you're gone? Like no one would know that you just disappeared. The police wouldn't know. And so like over time, you get to see the protagonist who does. There is a protagonist that interweaves throughout all these things that are happening, and you see like he's finding out that his girlfriend just went missing. Like he got a phone call. That's what got him up out of the house, and he goes and he's trying to look. And as this is all happening in real time, things are happening to other people in real time, right? And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a story about like Roanoke Island, where people just disappeared and they don't know why. They don't know where they went, right? And so it's a mystery. And what would happen if this was happening over the night, not just in one town, but several towns? And maybe there is something more involved. And so I really wanted to kind of showcase a sci-fi horror film, and I really wanted to do it, and so I did. And so I went in and I ended up sending these short films to film festivals. And if you're building a short film or a feature, you should throw them into film festivals. That's the best thing to do. And hopefully, if you keep sending them out, I mean, this is a lot of work. Once you're in production, once you're in pre-production, or sorry, once you're in post-production, it's not over. Not only are you editing your film, you also have to understand about marketing and
Right.
distribution, and the third one is really trying to get people to see your work. You need that. You need that. That's like the biggest thing. And so I did. I sent them off to film festivals, and guess what happened? I won, and I got awards for U2 in Visitant. And I went back to Mary and I was like, hey, I don't know if you were trying to like, trying to put, pressure on me to see if if I could go up and beyond or anything. But I just want to just kind of throw this in your fucking face a little bit that I actually won awards for the stuff that I did. And so I don't know if you're proud or not, but here you go. So you could take this however you want, but I'm glad I'm never going to be, seeing you ever again as professor, because clearly what you said to me is very disrespectful, and now I have some proof to kind of throw it back in your face, right? And so there you go. There's some
No,
stories
and
for it.
and that's huge too. Like I love this. I love that story. I remember you telling me it last night, and I still love it even now. And the thing is I feel like it was like a sense of pride thing for her. Like
Yeah.
she's gotten to a point where I'm not. I'm too proud to fail, kind of thing.
Yes.
Um, and uh, and then Carlos slashed your tires with
I
the
I
same
I
pizza. Like,
I am a I'm not a I don't really do a lot of, and actually I'm gonna throw this in the link here. This is something in the chat for everybody. That's my link tree. You can now stalk me for whoever is in the
hey,
yeah, you can just stalk me. It's okay. But yeah, no, uh, I I'm not by nature a violent human being. Though I put a person in a headlock because and that's another story in itself. So if we ever do round two, I can tell you more stories. I mean,
I ain't gonna
I,
complain.
I, I don't know how long you want to go with this podcast for the
We can
first
go.
interview, but I have an incredible amount of things I like to share with people, and I say that, and I say this with full honesty, where it's like I if I can give you a story and I can share my experience, and this goes for anybody else that's doing that's in the industry that's been around a lot longer than me, is that learning something from other people's experiences, or at least hearing it, hopefully gives you some insight to maybe for yourself a little bit to kind of like think about something that you may not be thinking about, right? I mean, we have so much in our minds, we have so much things that we're going through every single day, but at the core of, if you're in the industry, if you're trying to get into this industry, the the listening to somebody's life story, or listening to the experiences, what they've gone through, is hopefully something that you can also experience yourself and learn from, or be like,
Right.
oh, you know what, that guy over there did something that ultimately he shot both his feet off. Maybe maybe i maybe i shouldn't do that. Maybe I should
Right. Yeah. That's and
be, you
that's a
know
lot of what not to
yeah,
do.
yeah. and,
Situation.
and and don't get me wrong, I've burned bridges. I have shot my feet off time and time again. I've pissed off crew. I've done things that probably I should have never done, but I learned things, and I'm not perfect. I'm a human being, just like anybody else. And we all make mistakes, but we should learn from them. And that's the biggest thing that I like for everyone to understand, that, on the set, the people that you work with are human. They are crew. They are rigged. They are, sometimes they're jaded. Sometimes, you will find people that are having good days and bad days. They're assholes. We can say a lot of things about crew, a lot of things about other people, and especially the actors. When you're an actor, the biggest thing or when you're a fanboy, or fangirl, however, or fan, you get, you're like, oh my god, it's like Tom Cruise. Oh my god, it's like Ben Affleck. Oh my god, it's this, it's that. Oh wow, oh man, you shouldn't do that. There's a sort of thing about respect on a film set. Actors want privacy. Actors want to have their time because they're trying to build their character. If their
Hmm.
character is an asshole, they're gonna be an asshole because that is how they're trying to become that individual for their character, their role.
Right. No, it makes sense.
And so yeah, and so they, a lot of crew have their good and bad days, and so does actors. And so if you give them respect to give you respect, hopefully, right?
Right, and I think that's a big. I mean, at the end of the day, I think people forget also it's their job. You know what I mean? Like so when like you're in like these engine in the grand scheme of things, they're doing preparing for them is doing their job. So if you
It's
go in,
doing
if you
their
go
job.
into any job, if you go into a restaurant and you're like trying to be like, oh my god, it's this cook, blah blah blah, and you just start trying to get their attention, like yo, get out of here.
Yeah,
Like I'm trying to bake my fucking pizza. So like
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. It's
yeah,
it's no different to them. So
yeah, and that's correct. And and I mean, when you're at lunch and you're able to talk to these people during lunchtime, you can actually have conversations depending on how big the crew is, depending on how big, or small the set is, right? And so, uh, you know, the thing is that these they're just a face on a screen. I mean, they're just projecting what they're seeing on a script, and that's it. That's all. That's it, man. And they're doing stunts and they're doing all these crazy things, but they're that's the career that they chose. And we have to remember that they're human. At the end of the day, once they are done that film, they're in a pool of other actors fighting, fighting to get on screen. If you think, oh, cool, their job is done, they made a lot of money, okay, but you have to also think they are in the SAG union. And guess what? if you're in a union, they're taking a lot of money out of your check. Taxes, they're paying, their manager, they're paying their lawyer, they're paying
Hmm.
all these other people, and so yeah, they might be making a lot of money. And I mean, if you're above the line, you make a lot of
Oh no,
money,
of
right?
course.
But at the end of the day, I mean, those people are still, losing money because of other things, right? And
Hmm.
so if they're not smart about how they actually invest and do things, I mean, we can see this time and time again. Like actors, they go on a hiatus because they're not getting the roles, and if they have a bad movie, they get axed out, right?
Right.
And so like, you can see this from time to time again where actors actually be like, yeah, man, I was living in my vehicle. I mean, I was looking for that next role, because there's other actors. There is there is a lot of SAG actors out there,
That
and
makes sense though.
and so people have to understand the only reason why that certain actors that we see more of is because of not just their brand name, is because they've been connected to a trilogy, or
Hmm.
or something like, for instance, Tom Cruise, right? We only see him in Mission Impossible. That's it. Why? It's because he's the face of Mission Impossible. They can't replace him, and if they try to, they would either have to kill him off, and be like, okay, yeah, this is what we did with the new James Bond with Daniel Craig, right? He was
Right.
in, and now that we killed him off, now we can replace him out with somebody else, right? And so that's the
Hmm.
thing. Like if you're doing a franchise series, we see these actors pop up all the time, and they're the people who have made themselves, we will keep seeing. But here's the thing: we're going to lose all our idols, right? Everyone goes away at some point,
Hmm.
and there is not enough new people to showcase, that we don't have this like new, generation, of actors. I mean, we do, but it's not a bigger enough. There's not a big enough pool for everybody, right? And I
That
mean,
makes
and there's
sense though.
and there's a lot more to it. I mean, I can go into that whole thing, but and then hold on, sorry, somebody just called me.
No,
Uh,
you're good.
but yeah. Anyway, I can go on that for hours, but yeah, no, that's the thing. Like for me, for all the actors that I've gotten to work with, the biggest thing that I've taken on this entire thing is that I got to work with Leonard Nimoy before he passed. That's one of the greatest stories I could ever tell anybody. That shows how he was not just respectful, but how humble he was. That goes for Stan Lee, because I got to work with Stan Lee for 2 years as his BTS guy, right? Again, humble and respectful. I got to work with George Takei, got to work with Mark Hamill, I got to work with Dwayne Johnson. I've worked with of course Mark Wahlberg. I worked with Mark Wahlberg more than probably any other actor that I've ever worked with. I've met Ben Affleck twice. Don't like Ben Affleck. I hate. I He's on my shit list. I'll say that, and I know that he probably will agree that he's not a very likable human being. And then I've worked with, William Shatner. Same thing. He's also on my shit list. But again, um, and I mean, I've worked with so many other actors over the years with all the shows, right? Like earlier in the podcast, I was talking about the shows I worked on. That doesn't include the movies I worked on, right? So I worked on
Right.
The Witch, the 2016 Ghostbusters that we don't talk about, Black Mass, Essential Intelligence. I've worked on so many countless indie films. I've worked on a lot of trauma stuff. So I've worked with Lloyd a couple times, Lloyd Kaufman from Trauma. I've worked on the Wheelman. I've worked on a whole bunch of Netflix shows. I've also worked on a lot of Hallmark films as well. Those are something.
I've worked like working with seniors right now,
Yeah,
and that is like we used to have at least half of the seniors that'll just sit from day in and day out and just watch Hallmark.
yeah.
Like,
It's like, oh god. I will tell you this: the best Hallmark movies I've ever worked on were with the Germans. When the Germans came to town a few years back, or actually more than a few years now, they did German Hallmark films over in Germany, of course, but they came over to shoot some stuff here in the States, and those guys were the best. They got kicked out of the state after what they did, and they are just amazing. I love the Germans so much. I miss those guys so much. Um, Best story I can ever say. There's two stories about the German guys that I know of, and I was there on the first one. I wasn't there on the second one, but the Germans showed up, and the location manager that they had was completely gone. He was so drunk. He like literally couldn't even stand or move. He was just like just like just out of it. And they were supposed to shoot at so they had two houses. They were supposed to shoot the house to the left. They weren't supposed to shoot the house to the right. And so they broke into the wrong house because the location manager was so drunk. He was like, "That's the house." And so they went into and they broke into this old lady's house, and they started filming at this house. And then they realized, like, me and the other guys were like, "Wait a minute, I think this is like the wrong house." And this actually happened. This really happened. They broke into the wrong house. And they started shooting, and then somehow, some way, I think they finally caught on that maybe that was the wrong thing to do, and so they left the house destroyed. And so they went to the house next door, and they started shooting there. And the old lady shows up, and she's like, "Why is my door kicked in? Why is everything broken? What's this film crew sitting over here? What is going on? I'm gonna call the cops." The cops show up, and she's like talking to the Germans, and the Germans are talking to her in German, and she's like, "What's?" She's like, "What did you guys do?" And they're like,
Oh my
we don't speak English, ma'am," and they're fucking with her, and it's
Just making it worse.
they're just making it worse for themselves. And so yeah. So anyway, we're there. We're like, "Oh wow, this is amazing!" And you can see the little one popping in. Hey, here she comes. Hi. That is the 8-year-old. She's actually watching anime downstairs. Oh, the terror's coming. I love it. But yeah, say hi to everybody. Hi. So anyway, what happened was on the other site that they were shooting at, the Germans ended up putting the dolly track on top of this guy's roof, or at least on I guess the porch, I guess the cans over the porch. And so as they were doing that, what happened was the dolly went through the guy's roof. Like, it actually went through. And so they're like,
no.
they're like, "Oh, hey, well, we put a hole in your roof. Let's put 5 more. Let's do that." So they put the dolly system. They put the dolly. I think it was a Matthews, or it might have been a Fisher. I don't know which one, but they did, and it just kept everything just went, and it just went boop, and then they put it up, and they're like boop, boop, and they just kept going, and so they put holes in this guy's roof, and all right, love you, all right. So anyway, she's gonna be like this all day. She's had a couple slushies, so she's gonna be doing this.
We were all kids once.
All right. Oh yeah. So, all right. You gotta go. Yeah, I know. I'm doing this podcast. But anyway, so ultimately, the biggest thing is that this is what happens on sets. You have no idea what's going to happen, right? And so everything that could have ever happen happens, and come on. So yeah. Anyway, long story short is it's the memories, it's the things that you that you remember from these things, right? And the feet in the podcast, All right.
Right.
Love you.
All right, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Her couple seconds of frame there, you know.
Right.
Actually, to be honest with you, the little one, I have two suspicions. I think she really loves fashion, so I actually have been trying to get her into doing more fashion work, or at least, you know, because she actually has a really nice eye for it, and it looks like she really loves doing photography too. And so I think the little one here is going to have a nice eye for things, and so I'm hoping to kind of give her, you know, some love on that. And yes, and there we go.
Oh, we got the Nezuko.
We got the Nezuko. Yes. We've been talking about anime, and hey, you know what? What's your favorite anime? What's your favorite anime?
Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer.
Yeah, there we go.
Good one.
So I got her into Sailor Moon. I got her into My Hero, Demon Slayer. She's about to watch Fairy Tale. And
Friendship show.
yeah, I was, and so she's gonna go watch Fairy Tale. She will start Naruto at some point, and Bunto and all the rest of them. My goal is to kind of get her through all that so that she can watch more mature stuff when she gets older, you know, and kind of appreciate it now, you know.
Kenshi. Or
Yeah.
Kenshi and
Yeah.
right off the bat, Berserk. Like
Yeah, yeah. Well, she's 8, so we're not going to show her anything.
Not Berserk yet.
Yeah, not Berserk yet. I mean, an 8-year-old can only watch so much, you know, until she gets a little older and we're a little bit more mature, right? Right, just like that, huh? Yeah.
And then start watching the Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon. Yeah, see, I love it. She loves it. See, if you know, she could take the whole show, guys. I mean, I don't need to be here. I mean, she can entertain you guys. You know,
She's doing all out here.
she's going all out. You know, that's the slushy kick it in. You know, that's the sugar. That's the sugar.
Dude,
You know,
you're lucky. Like for me, I got diabetes now, so for me it's just like I don't get that luxury no more of like just getting all wild off of sugar.
Yeah.
I gotta like when you're a kid it's sugar. When you're an adult it's Four Locos. Like
yeah, right. Four locos. Oh my god, that goes back. That goes back. But I guess for all the weird things that I've gone through, I mean, I've been all right. So kind of to say this, I've been shot at multiple times, right? I've had tons and tons of things happen to me over a course of time. And yes, I've been shot at. Yeah, I've had a lot of things happen to me on film sets, and there's tons of stories in itself. And what are you doing? What are you
Is
doing?
that bubble tape?
That is bubble tape.
That is bubble tape.
That
Oh
is
my
bubble
gosh!
tape. Look at this. Look at this. Yeah, there you go.
Look at that!
Look at that. Look at that. Yeah.
Bubble tape.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah. She saw it and she's like, "Can I have this?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can have that." And she's like, "Okay, good." How much? Wow, you've gone through a whole
That's
bunch.
what I'm saying. They
Jesus
still make that.
They
Like,
still make it, guys. They still make it. There is things. Okay, so here's funny enough. There is things that, of course, in any state, you'd be really surprised. There might be a product in one state, but if you go outside that state, you might not see it, right? And so, like, you're always going to find things that you just never see, And as soon as you leave another state, it's going to be there, And it's like Moxie, right? Have you ever had Moxie?
I don't think I've ever had Moxie.
Oh man, oh boy. It's the drink from the gods, some may say. It's horrible. It's horrible drink. It's something to you try it once. If you like it, if you don't like it, you're gonna feel it. You're really gonna taste. You're gonna feel the death in your mouth. But hey, I love you, but you gotta go. Can't have you on the podcast.
We can start wrapping this one up too. So they still get Surge. They still have Surge on Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Surge. Yeah. But anyway, we can wrap this up. So we do round 2. We'll I'll go into more movie depth and the stuff that I've worked on.
It'll be fun.
But I will tell you this: I own, and I know that you were going to ask me this earlier, but we got lost in this translation. I have and own now 2 massive film archives. My digital film archive right now is over 35,000 films, with over like I think 15,000 TV shows. I think, and over the course of time, I've owned most of all this media in my first 2 film collections. When I first sold my first mega collection in 2013, I sold it for a very good amount of money. Yeah, I know people go, "What?" My second film archive right now is over 9,000 movies. My first one was over 13,000 movies, with 10,000 vinyls, 2,000 posters, 5,000 video games, and yes, I am a collector. My father was the game collector. My father worked for Nintendo, Sega, and PlayStation. He worked for Nintendo the longest, from 84 to 93, Sega from 94 to 95, PlayStation from 96 to 97, and back to Nintendo in 98. And he did marketing distribution for all 3 game companies. His game collection in 2001 was over 16,000 video games. He lost them all, and when he lost everything, he decided on building me my first, and ultimately he built the film archive for me. And Nasco approves this message. That physical media is physical media is very important. And I think that having something for yourself is also very important. And no streaming services can take that away from you.
Right.
And not every single streaming service will have everything that you want to find or see because of rights issues. There's rights issues, and people forget that these companies get rights to these movies or shows and can only hold on to them for X amount of time. And that's the thing that people forget. And so if it's an obscure movie, you're never going to find it. You're never going to see it. And so for me, I believe in boutique labels. I believe in having a Blu-ray, having a Blu-ray player, having a 4K player, having an all-region player. And Kitty approves as well.
This is Luna from Sailor Moon.
Luna from Sailor Moon. Yeah. Aww. I love it.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, I support boutique labels. I know this is amazing. I support boutique labels, and so that's why for me, I tell everybody, physical media forever, and for all the people that are in here that will watch this, make sure that you own something for yourself, because it's value. It really is, because you can pass it on to like little ones like this one, and I hope that she appreciates this, that all the stuff that I've gotten over the years will go to her at some point, and that she can enjoy it, and so then she can see these shows over and over and over again, right? Because for the most part, you never know, they could all just disappear,
Right.
and so with that said, yeah, that's it. I guess that's the biggest thing I can leave with you guys.
No, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you being on there. She's like, all right, your time's up. Like,
yeah, my time is up.
Absolutely. Well,
okay.
I appreciate you being out here, man.
I love you.
I really do.
All right.
We're definitely gonna have to do a part 2.
Oh yes,
to
I
go
will
through
definitely
as
do a
well.
part 2 with you.
And I will let you know when we get that going. I have another podcast coming up here with another guy that I have next Tuesday. So everyone else, be sure to stay tuned for that.
Thank you.
Also, like I said, be sure to check out his YouTube. You put all your links down in you have your link in your link tree. It's in the comments as well. Be sure to check that out as well. Please do give him a sub, and if you're on TikTok, give this man a follow.
Yeah.
So
and you can see all my collection and everything here, and like I said, Nasco always approves, so you can see. Yeah. Okay, you got it.
Oh, I'm getting fact checked already.
Dude, yeah, I know. Getting fact checked, man. I suck. I can barely say my own name, let alone anything else. So but yes. Okay. She says, "Get off." I'm getting off. Right, guys, have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Absolutely,
enjoy.
you too, man. Take care of yourself. And as always, I'm Taylor from F Official G. Be sure to check out all my stuff down below, and I will catch you all in the next one.
Bye.
All right, it's all good.
Hey, thank you very much.